Samson falls in love with this beautiful lady. Her name is Delilah. But oh my gosh, Delilah does him dirt. Stay tuned. Hello, my name is Father Mike Manning. I'm a Catholic priest. It's a great honor to be with you. What I'm coming to you with today is a chance for us to understand the Bible, the great book, the revelation of God. And as we're looking at the Bible, I'm hoping that I'm going to see some very exciting women. I'm going to the women of the Old Testament, of the Hebrew Bible, and believing that as we look at these women's lives, we can start to say something not just of what was going on then, but something that can say to you and me today, this is how we can come closer to God. This is the challenge of what it means to be a follower of the Lord. Well, today we're going to be talking about a fascinating lady by the name of Delilah. There was a movie in Hollywood about all these terrible people, and we've heard about them. But let me tell you the story of Delilah. Now, first of all, let me give you the historical context. Delilah was a member of a group called the Philistines. They were a powerful people that lived in the Mediterranean coast between Egypt and present-day Israel. And they lived in, you've also heard the word Gaza. You know, that's where they lived. The Bible recounts many battles between Israel and the Philistines. David, if you'll remember, fought with Goliath, who was a Philistine. Remember, he was this big giant of a man, and David was just a little boy. But the armies were fighting with one another, and David came in, and with his sling, he was able to throw it and was able to overcome this giant Goliath, who was a Philistine. Well, Samson and Delilah lived during the time of Judges. Now, when the Jewish people came out of the desert, for about 200 years, the way they were ruled were with, they called them judges. These were men, and there was even a woman by the name of Deborah who became the director, the counselor, the one that gave direction about what God wanted them to do. And Samson was this judge at his time. This is all around, oh gosh, if you can look at it in the perspective, around the year 1100 before Jesus. Samson was one of these judges of the Jews, and he was physically overpowering. Oh my gosh, he could do things with his body with strength and lifting and being able to overcome enemies in great ways. So that's kind of the historical perspective. Now let me tell you the story of Delilah. Well, Delilah was knockout gorgeous. When Samson saw her, oh my God, he was overwhelmed. He fell in love immediately with her. The only problem was that she was from the other side of the tracks. She was a Philistine, a tribe that was an arch enemy of the Jews. Well, Delilah made no bones about her commitment to her people. There wasn't any thought of, well, if I maybe going to have a friendship or a relationship with Samson, I'll leave my religion with the Philistines. No, she was strong. But Samson was blinded by her beauty, and his desire to have her as his own became the drive in his life. Well, along with her righteousness to remain faithful to the people before this man came in, she allowed herself to be a traitor to this man that loved her so much. And she became a traitor because of money. So here we've got this man that's madly in love with this gorgeous woman. And this woman, I'm sure she's gratified by this big, handsome, strong man. But money was more important to her. And the leaders of her people, of these Philistines, came to her. And again, they're trying to overcome this power. And they said, we need you to find out what's the key to his power. What has he got? And if you could find that out, we could then get him, and then we'd be able to overcome him, because he's the top man of the Jewish people. And we need to overcome him. So find out what it was. And old Delilah, she said, okay. And that money was just shining in her eyes. And she says, okay. Well, 3 times she asked Samson for the secret of his power. And 3 times he gave her false information. One time he said, well, he said, if you tie me up with bowstrings, or another time, if you tie me up with a wet rope, or if you braided the cuttings of my hair and tied me up, oh, he said, I will be helpless. Well, 3 times she tested that. She did what he said. And every time, old Samson was no problem. Boom. He would just break the bonds, and he was free, and his strength was so overcoming. Well, Delilah was getting upset. She wanted the money, and she also had the pressure from some of her leaders. So she scolded him and said, now, stop doing that. Tell me the truth. And he just kept putting her off, But she persisted. And finally, one time, in order to get this secret, Samson was tired. He was resting. And he was resting right in her lap, And she asked him again, what is the secret? Oh, and he was so tired, and so he told her. He said, if you were to cut off my hair, I would lose all of my strength. Well, he fell asleep right on her lap. She reached over with a knife, and she cut his hair off. Well, as soon as it was off, the people came in who were the enemies, and they came to grab him. And of course, Samson thought that he would be able to fight them off with his great strength, as he always did. But now, because his hair was gone, his strength was gone, and he was like a little child being held in control. Right away, the people reached in, and they gouged out his eyes. This man, and they forced him to be like an ox who would work on a millstone, going and walking around in a circle, working on grain and just doing like that. He was like a wild animal that was just set and held there. Oh, the Philistines were happy. Oh, they had now the leader of the Jews, and everything was going well. The power and the indomitable strength of Samson was forgotten. And they forgot about the hair. And after several months, Samson's hair grew back. And once, when Samson was brought into a banquet of the leaders and the influential people, and again, they brought him in as kind of like a trophy to say, look at here was this great leader, and now he's like a little child that we can control with our deal. Well, they brought him into that position, and Samson just said very simply, put me, the people that were leading him, put me in a place where the foundation of this building is, where the pillars of the real strength are. And not thinking much about it, they made him stand there, and now everybody was laughing at them. And I can even imagine that Delilah was present when this happened. But there he was in there, and suddenly began, the strength of Samson had come into his hair, and he reached out and he put his hands on those 2 pillars, and this monumentally strong man pushed the pillars apart, and the whole building came crashing down on those inside. You wonder if Delilah was among those killed, or if Samson hoped she was safe. And I often wonder about Delilah. I wonder if she ever regretted trying to ruin the life of a man who loved her so very valiantly. Fascinating story, isn't it? Well, now the challenge, and as always the challenge of the Bible is, what does that have to say to me today? We can't talk about this hair, and we can't talk about this falling in love. Does that have an application for us today? I want you to stay tuned. There's going to be a message coming to you now. But stay tuned, and we're going to be able to see how this experience of Delilah can touch us today in our desire to come closer to God. Thank you so very much for your prayers and your financial support of this ministry. You are vitally important. Now, we've got an organization called the Mighty 800. We're looking for 800 people who every month will support us with a really powerful donation to allow us to continue. Problem is, we only have 677 of these people that are helping us. We need another 123. Would you think about joining the Mighty 800? Remember, the purpose is we get a program that goes across the country every week, sharing the love of God and the power of what God can do in everyone's life. This program is seen on the Trinity Broadcasting Network, seen on the Church Channel, and even on the American Forces Network, plus many cable networks. In addition to that, we have a daily reflection for your smartphone. It's called iGod Today. Oh, this message is going to 70 countries around the world. But in addition to that, we have to be involved with this internet. We have to maintain our web page. We also have to be very active in social media. You know that. It's called Twitter and it's called Facebook. When you join and make your first payment, I'll send you a free copy of my book, 15 Faces of God. This is the story of how Jesus tells us who his Father is through the parables of Jesus. And if you're already a Mighty 800 number, and when you invite someone else to join the Mighty 800, we'll send you and your friend a copy of 15 Faces of God. Please. Our need is urgent. We need help. Please call the number on the screen or reach us by email. And God bless you for your generous help. Now the question comes, how can we relate that story to our life today, in our world today? What does that mean for us in our quest to know God and to love God? I thought of these things. Number one is the reality of the struggle that many people have to find a marriage partner. How many times have you heard a friend say that this one person is not right for the other to marry? Friends will explain how the relationship will never work. No, I know him, I know her. You're not the right people together. They'll enumerate the concrete observances as well as their intangible feelings. But their comments are not heard by their friend. Love is often blind. And when the inevitable breakup happens, they do all they can to suppress the, I told you so. Love can be blind. There's a chemistry that locks in, and no amount of logic or reasoning or morality will deter a person from his or her driven love. Today we remember the blindness of Samson as he looked on the lovely Delilah. 3 times she attempted to get control of him, and each time he was blind to her evil intent. Well, after I thought about that, the question comes is, what's the answer for us to see that someone is going in the wrong way with blind love? And for the person who's fallen into blind love, well, there doesn't seem to be much help. The only way to avoid the pitfalls of blind love and its devastation is for each of us to educate ourselves about what is realistic and what are those characteristics that are important of the person we want to become involved with. A good friend of mine, Father Pat Connor, wrote a book entitled Whom Not to Marry. In it, he used the characteristics of love Paul speaks of in his letter to the Corinthians. Now, this is not a bad plan of attack when choosing a partner. Now, let's just go through this for a moment and just think about this. You're trying to figure out, should I marry him? Should I marry her? What's going to be the best way before the overwhelming power of this in-loveness happens, of really trying to understand the right decision? It's really good when you're thinking about someone that you want to give your life to look through these main points. Now, let's go through them. Is he or she patient? Gosh, in our world of getting things done quickly today, when things take a little bit longer, the tension can arise very much. The next word that he says is kind. It's such a powerful word that so many times in a marriage relationship, in a committed relationship, when words are not kind, they destroy things. And we've got to work at making sure that we're overwhelming with kindness. It's so easy to be negative, but to try to be kind. The other word is not to be jealous. Jealousy can be like a snake that enters into a relationship and pulls it away. Is the person that you're attracted to, are they willing to be able to say, I'd like to have them to have friends and be able to have other people in their lives without perhaps a drawing back in jealousy? Paul talks about not being pompous. Sometimes you can get so involved in who you are and perhaps your education, perhaps your position in life, that you can start to think with that pomposity that you're better than the other person. And that's also tied in with not being inflated. I'm going to be so important and so self-centered. As long as you're self-centered, you're probably not going to be able to have that necessary love and care for the other person. The next thing that Paul says is don't be rude. It kind of ties in with the kindness. But so many times when I find a couple together and at a party with other people, someone says something rude, something negative about another, their partner. Ooh, that's a good sign that isn't the way that you should go. Well, I have found that so much of the success of a marriage is like a 90-10%. 90% of the time you're giving to the other person and only expecting 10% back. If you can have that attitude, that selfless caring, and not just on one side, but when there's a mutuality in there, that can bring things together in a beautiful way. And Paul talks about the person not seeking their own interests, but a person seeking the other's interest. Well, anger is one of the most dangerous things in the world, and is a person quick-tempered, just kind of flashing off with what they say. If that happens too often, that's a good indication that let's be a little bit more circumspect before we move into this relationship. And what about brooding over injuries? So many times we can get hurt, and there are some people that you can walk up and say, hey, we did it wrong, I'm sorry, and then you move on. But there are some people that when they've been hurt, even when you're asking for forgiveness, boom, they're holding on to that with all they can. And they refuse, they refuse to let go. Another thing is rejoicing over wrongdoing, but and really making sure that they rejoice in the truth. Are you willing to be a person who tells the truth? Paul throws in the next sentence of bearing all things, believing all things, hope all things, endures all things. There's a certain sense of overpowering patience and goodness and endurance with a strong sense of faithfulness. If we're faithful to that checklist, we'd have a pretty healthy chance of not falling into the pitfalls of a bad relationship. Now, the next question that I wanted to get from Delilah is, dealing with the betrayal of those we love. Betrayal is one of life's most painful tragedies. Even the person who prides himself in independence must admit the need of people who believe, support, and love him. They become the pillars that allow us to move through life. And so, we reach out to people in trust that they'll become the help we need to get through life. But evil moves into the hearts of all people. Part of our sinful nature can easily forget our commitments to another and even delight in betrayal and the downfall of a person who loves us. Judas betrayed Jesus, and today we remember Delilah's betrayal of Samson. Well, the question comes, how do we fortify ourselves from not becoming a betrayer? Well, one of the most important ways of ensuring that we don't become betrayers is to honestly face our strong inclination to evil, even the evil of betraying someone we love. The most significant step in overcoming our inclination to betray is facing the shadow side of us. Despite all of our lofty aspirations and religious upbringing, we struggle with the enticements of evil and betrayal. St. Paul expressed this battle and ours when he wrote, What I do not understand, for I do not do what I want, but I do what I hate. And again, for I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want. Oh, isn't that fascinating that this great person, this great St. Paul, could say that, could really be filled with that kind of a challenge in his life. You know? So important. It's good for us to acknowledge the inclination of evil that's in our life, and it gives us humility to be on guard. We need to struggle to maintain fidelity to the other, even when the news is bad. Fidelity is the ideal. We have hope. We have confidence in the struggle because of the great power of Jesus over evil. Often in marriage and in relationships with people who are close to us, we become aware of the other's strengths. These are the gifts that God has given to each of us. The love that encourages us to grow in these gifts and talents. And that's what love is, when we glory in the other growing and becoming great. If Delilah truly loved Samson, she would have kept his strength safe from harm. She would have fostered it. But Delilah's duplicity speaks of our insecurity in the face of another's God-given goodness and talent. In marriage and friendship, we must guard against our drive to pull down and even destroy those that we care for and love. Unfortunately, marriage partners turn on their mates, and friends turn on friends. The story of Delilah reminds us of the power of evil and how that evil can destroy relationships. Only with God's help can we overcome our evil inclination and learn to glory in the goodness and the gifts of those we love. We have a dream. We want to produce a very important program for which we need your special help. We want to tell the stories of our brave military personnel, people you know or knew. You can be part of this program by sending us the story of your loved one. We'll combine all the stories into a beautiful television program to air across the world. Be sure to send photos. Please consider a financial gift to enable us to produce this inspiring program, acknowledging our military. That means your loved ones. Please contact us with your story and donation. Call the number on the screen or write to us. Please, the need is urgent Do it right now. Allow this miracle and this dream to happen. I'm hoping that as we're going through these women of the Old Testament of the Hebrew Bible, that you're getting a chance to study, to read the stories and go a little bit deeper. I'm hoping too that maybe you're getting together with some friends and allowing this study to be something that can bless you. Here's some questions that I'd ask you to think personally, or if you can get together with a group. These are questions that come from the story of Delilah. Number one, is love blind? Secondly, why does love sometimes turn into betrayal? Why does that happen? And again, what are key ingredients to being faithful in our relationships? And here's another one. Now, and try to be honest with this. Have you experienced evil? Now, here's another fascinating question. Delilah discovered the key to Samson's strength in his hair. What is the key to your strength? We're very anxious for you to pick up your telephone and give us a call, or to go to our webpage and make sure that you write down perhaps a special prayer intention you have. Or I want to make sure that you also tune in to our daily app on the iPhone. This is for your smartphones, for Android, for your iPhone, and for your Windows telephones. Hook in and get in touch with us, if you will. Listen, I'm asking you to do that because we're going to pray. And gosh, I've got some wonderful people that have written in here. Look at these people that have written. We're going to be praying today for Jesse in Texas, his ill sister who has a tumor. Okay, we're praying. Aubrey in Missouri. Lord, please help me with my health. Arams in Oregon. He wants well-being. And from Maryland, Patrick, employment and health. And Anson in Florida, financial issues. She's at the end of her rope. Lord, bless all these people, those that are home, that are struggling with all kinds of things. Bring your healing. Bring wisdom, the wisdom of your light, to allow us to be able to know you and love you. And may Jesus' love for you always make you smile.